They're for aesthetic purposes only. All of that support is coming from the steel skeleton. You'll be seeing 5 prominent architectural styles along the tour, so I do want to give you a brief overview so you're a little bit more familiar once we do get out there. Chicago School being the first. Then you'll see some great examples of the Beaux-Arts, also referred to as Neoclassicism, influenced by ancient Grecian, ancient Roman aesthetics. Daniel Burnham, who was our city planner for a time, chief of the World Fair of 1893, he loved and perpetuated this particular style of architecture. And that is how he chose to represent Chicago at the fair, a city full of these Beaux-Arts white pavilions. And then in the 1920s, Art Deco becomes very prominent. These designs were starting to become very tall, which was unprecedented, so the architects are really going to be emphasizing that verticality, drawing your eyes up toward the top of these Deco designs. Heavy ornamentation on Art Deco, and many of these buildings take on a classic shape. They look like chairs or thrones. Very specific reason behind that, which I'll talk about a little bit later. After the 1920s, there was a 30-year gap in construction as a result of the Great Depression. No money, no big buildings going up in Chicago. We resumed construction in the late 1950s into the early 1960s, entering into the age of modernism, which was essentially the antithesis to the preceding Art Deco period. 30 years had gone by and a lot had changed. Modern designs have no ornamentation whatsoever, built on a grid, dark in color, exposed steel, glass curtain wall, visually weightless quality to the design of these modern spaces. Mies van der Rohe is one of the most influential architects of the 20th century, and he's considered to be the father of modernism, influencing architects from all over the world. Modern designs also referred to as international style for that reason. The 5th and final style of architecture you'll be seeing this morning is called postmodernism, and we are currently in a postmodern era. Postmodernism pays tribute to the past, really easy way to remember that. These designs will caricature, pay homage to a specific building in history, specific style of architecture, or even a specific architect. And then kind of lumped in there with postmodernism is contextualism. Exactly what it sounds like, referring to a building taking cues from the surrounding space, so either the architectural surroundings or the landscape surrounding the space, and of course, sometimes both. And once we do get out onto the main branch, you'll see plenty of examples of all 5 of these styles, and with those great visual aids, you'll gain a better understanding of what each style represents here in the city of Chicago. So we are now moving out of Ogden Slip, this little private sector of the river that's named for our very first mayor, William Butler Ogden. And as I mentioned, we'll be swinging around to the main branch in just a few minutes, and that's when I'll start describing all of this wonderful architecture. But before we get there, I would like to focus on this river for a few minutes. Some of you might already know this, but back in the year 1900, the natural flow of the river was reversed. So Lake Michigan, Lake Michigan, which is right up ahead of us, was and is our main source of drinking water. Remember, smelly wild onions, this river was not a clean body of water. It was once considered to be toxic. The good news, we've been upgraded at this point to highly polluted, so we're very proud of that here in Chicago. Now, to alarm or scare anybody, we have very safe, clean drinking water here, and the river reversal is how that was achieved. So this toxic river was flowing right into Lake Michigan, contaminating our water source. Chicagoans are becoming very ill, big public health concern. Something had to be done. The sanitation department starts brainstorming, and they settle on this brilliant idea of reversing the flow of the river. So they began digging away at this massive canal, putting all this time, energy, effort into this project. Keep in mind, if they are successful in this endeavor, this toxic water will end up somewhere other than Lake Michigan. That somewhere was St. Louis. They caught wind of what we were up to, and as you can imagine, they were not happy about it. They file an injunction with the city of Chicago basically saying, we don't want your disgusting water. But before any hearing can actually take place, Chicago just went and did it, reversed the flow of the river irrevocably. The proverbial floodgates had been open. This was all very Chicago of us. Sometimes you do what you gotta do. This was crucial to our city's future, and we weren't going to let all that digging go to waste. So they did it. Successfully reversed the flow of the river, and now Lake Michigan flows into our river system, bringing us safe, clean drinking water, considered to be one of the 7 engineering wonders of the United States. If you look up ahead, on your right side, you'll notice our entire lakefront is free and clear of any high-rise construction, so that's everything east of Lakeshore Drive, which is that roadway off to the right side. It's all preserved, beaches, parkland, open to the public. We have one man to thank for this. Aaron Montgomery Ward. He is a hero in the city of Chicago, and he single-handedly saved this lakefront for the future generations. He fought for nearly 20 years, late 1800s into the early 1900s, to preserve that area. He also didn't want a lot of the poor civilians who were living there at the time to lose their homes to these large construction projects, so he fights really hard. Derided in the press, scorned by the politicians for making this so difficult, Montgomery Ward was a millionaire, but he didn't like the other millionaires in the city, would oppose them at every chance. Fights really hard, and he is victorious, and because of Montgomery Ward, our entire lakefront preserved. Beaches, parkland, open to the public, and no obstruction of Lake Michigan. Montgomery Ward said, "I fought for the poor people of Chicago, not the millionaires," which goes to show that one person truly can make a great difference in this world. And just like the river reversal, it's hard to say what Chicago would be today had those events not occurred. They really shaped the future of our city. So we'll be moving back under Lakeshore Drive momentarily, entering onto the main branch of the river. And you'll notice from here on either side of the water, those Art Deco towers connected to the bridge. Those were preserved from the original construction back in 1938. The roadway and the bridge has gone through a lot of renovation over the years, but they managed to keep these towers intact. And this bridge was dedicated to the city of Chicago by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He traveled out here and gave a big speech on the day of the dedication. So once we do move under Lakeshore Drive, I'll start off describing a few buildings off to the left side before the majority of the tour I'll be focused over to the right. So if I don't cover it on our way out, I'll most likely cover it on our way back. So if you look up ahead, this is on your left side, just a little bit up ahead in the distance. That building with those dark vertical lines moving all the way up to the top of the space, that is Aon Center, formerly the Standard Oil building. It's the third tallest building in Chicago, and initially it was clad in white Carrara marble. The issue with the marble is that it was not durable enough to withstand Chicago's harsh climate, so only 15 years after construction was complete, at the first sign of deterioration, they just got rid of it, stripped the entire building of the marble and reclad it in granite, a very costly mistake, upwards of $60 million to fix, money they did not plan on spending. The marble was repurposed, trophies, paperweights, gravel, not exactly worthwhile trade-off for all of that money spent. Blue Cross Blue Shield, also on your left side, it's going to be obstructed momentarily. It's actually behind that residential tower with all that construction in front of it. Kind of a bluish silver tint to the glass, and you'll see these floating pillars in the center of the space. So it'll be kind of peeking out between these two buildings in just a moment. Blue Cross Blue Shield is a very visible space. Specifically at night, if you're moving northbound into the city on Lakeshore Drive, you won't miss it. They strategically light up the offices to spell out words or phrases that correspond with current events around the city. Go White Sox, go Hawks, Happy 4th of July. Whatever it is, it will be written on the side. And that building was also designed to double in its height if need be. So now you can start to see right through there, that's the building I'm describing. So if they need that additional space in the future, they can tack those stories right on top of the existing structure. Continuing on the left side, a little bit up ahead, clear, opaque, alternating glass, triangular shaped design. That is the Swiss Hotel. Swiss Hotel was designed by modernist Harry Weiss, a Chicagoland native who was born in Evanston, Illinois. Ivy League educated, Yale, MIT, also served time as a naval officer, so many will speculate that the signature triangular design is an homage to his days in the Navy, keeping up with that nautical theme. And we'll see a few more of Harry Weiss's designs along the river. All of them do include that signature. And as you're moving closer to the Swiss Hotel, you can really make out that prominent triangular shape to the building.
Wow, that's cool.
Just beyond the Swiss Hotel, behind it, there's that taller structure, curved white balconies, blue tinted glass. That is called Aqua. Designed by Jeannie Gang, complete back in 2010. Aqua is currently the tallest building anywhere in the world that was designed by a female architect. So we're very proud to have that right here in Chicago. At the base of Aqua is Hotel Blue. Up top, you have some residential space. Some of Chicago's rich and famous are residing there. I can reveal this to you all because she has moved out, but Lady Gaga did live in Aqua for a number of years when Chicago was her home. She ditched us. She doesn't live here anymore. But Jeannie Gang, who designed that building, is a native of Chicago, and she is doing incredible things. She designed Vista Tower, projected to be complete in the year 2020 along East Wacker. Upon its completion, she's going to beat her own record as tallest by a woman, beat out Aon Center as third tallest in the city of Chicago. So we're moving under Columbus Street Bridge, and once we do emerge, immediately to your right side will be NBC Tower. Complete in 1989, NBC Tower is postmodernism paying tribute to the past. Though it was complete in 1989, it's a postmodern take on the 1920s soaring Art Deco style, modeled after Rockefeller Center in New York City. Designed by Adrian Smith, who if you're not familiar with that, you will be by the end of this tour.
Which one is it?
And I will talk a little bit more about NBC Tower when we come back. Next door to that, still on the right side, a lot shorter, windows protruding out towards the water, that is called Gleacher Center. Gleacher Center, designed by Dirk Lohan, and in the 1990s became home to the University of Chicago's Graduate School of Business. You'll notice momentarily on the west end of the building coming up, you'll see it in a second, there are no windows. On the other side of that bare wall are the classrooms. Our business students are not to be distracted by any river shenanigans or goings on. It's actually eerily quiet this morning, but especially in the summer, it tends to get really loud and rowdy out here. Chicagoans take it to the limit when they finally get some nice weather after being cooped up all winter long. So now you can see absolutely no windows for them. And then continuing on the right side, up ahead, just on the edge of the water, that glass structure, that is the Apple flagship store. It was actually just opened yesterday, the grand opening, and they revealed it. They had a big sheet over it, and then the glass was revealed. It looks really cool. That flat structure on the rooftop, from an aerial view, looks like a giant MacBook. And obviously we can't see that from this vantage point, but you can Google that image later if you're interested. Full disclosure, I do think it was a temporary decal, but the photos do exist online. And directly behind that is Tribune Tower, which I am definitely not skipping. It's one of my favorite buildings in the city, and I will talk about it in depth on our way back. Across the bridge on your right side with that clock tower up there, this beautiful space is the Wrigley Building, 1921, designed by the firm of Graham, Anderson, Probst & White. It was the very first office building constructed along the Magnificent Mile, very popular stretch of Chicago along Michigan Avenue, which we're moving under right now. And once we emerge, you'll get a great view of the Wrigley Building. William Wrigley was a born salesman. He started off selling, not gum, but soap powder and baking powder. He would provide complimentary packs of gum with the products he was selling, and he noticed people were a lot more excited about this free gum than the products they were paying for. So Wrigley saw his destiny right there, went on to make a fortune selling chewing gum. Continuing on the right, you'll notice Trump Tower coming up, complete in 2009, second tallest building in the city. Another Adrian Smith design. Adrian Smith, formerly of Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, now running his own architectural firm. This is a great example of postmodern contextualism. Remember contextualism, a building taking cues from the surrounding space. So this is curving with the river, and the various setbacks do align with the building surrounding it. Postmodern contextualism here, and then coming up on your right, just across the bridge, a wonderful example of modernism. The old IBM building was designed by the master himself, Mies van der Rohe. And now you can start to see all those modern qualities. So it's dark in color, built on a grid, no ornamentation whatsoever, exposed steel, glass curtain wall, visually weightless quality to the design of this modern space. Mies van der Rohe was known for saying less is more, and that is going to be reflected in all of his designs. This is actually van der Rohe's very last building. It was complete in 1971, about a year after his death. He never saw the complete construction on this space. But van der Rohe's very last building does share a coincidental neighbor in Bertrand Goldberg's Marina City, coming up on your right. These are nicknamed the Corn Cob Towers for very obvious reasons. Bertrand Goldberg, who designed these towers, was a one-time student of Mies van der Rohe, so it's really great to see master and student, their designs situated right next to each other along the Chicago River, showing very disparate styles. Van der Rohe worked primarily with right angles, as you see, and Bertrand Goldberg did not, as you'll see in these towers. Goldberg said, "There are no right angles found in nature, therefore he didn't include them in his designs." These towers are very conceptual. They were designed to be a city within a city, complete in 1964. This was an era where people were leaving downtown, moving to the suburbs. So Goldberg wanted to provide incentive for people to stay downtown. So all of those suburban amenities people were leaving for included in the towers: home, parking, office space.